eviction actions. This video in particular is going to be dealing with evictions based upon non-payment of rent. It'll be focused primarily for property owners that have rental properties here in Pierce County. I'll try to cover some information regarding some of the King County areas, but primarily this will be for the benefit of Pierce County property owners. There have been lots of changes in the Residential Landlord-Tenant Act through the period of COVID, and actually a lot of the restrictions that were in place during COVID have expired, which is a good thing for our landlords. So it streamlines the process quite a bit, but we're currently in a little bit of a period of transition where, although some of the past requirements have expired, they still apply to rent that may have accrued several months ago. So if you have a tenant that has a lot of rent accrued on their ledger, you may have to jump through some extra hoops, and we're going to discuss those in this video. So non-payment of rent evictions are controlled under RCW 5918-650, and the very first determination you need to make is basically whether or not you have to provide a written offer of repayment plan. Now, this video is being made in August of 2023. And so, as time goes forward, this is going to be less applicable. But if this does apply to you and you're going to start an eviction and your tenant owes rent from April 30th or earlier, before that time, you are going to need to give them an offer of repayment plan for that portion of the rent. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen here. And so the offer repayment plan notice can take several different forms, but this would be typical. And we're going to presume some facts here. So the facts we're going to presume, one is that the monthly rent is $900 a month. We're going to presume that this is a Section 8 tenant and that the tenant portion is only $450 a month. So the monthly rent is $900 and you have Section 8 paying $450 and the tenant is paying $450. In this scenario, the tenant owes for March, April, May, June, July, and August. And you're going to be serving this notice on August the 5th. All right, so let's look at this notice. And again, this notice can take different forms. It's not a statutory notice, so there isn't one base form that we're working off. Different sources will have different texts regarding how the form reads, but they should all have similar information. So first, we want to, of course, identify the tenant. It's typical to identify and all of their occupants in any eviction notice, just to cover any unauthorized occupants that may be living in the premises. And of course, you want to indicate the tenant's address. The next portion is you have to let the tenant know how much time they have to reply to the offer. So under statute, they have to give it's at least 14 days notice. And so if you recall, under the scenario, we're presuming you're going to serve the notice on August 5th. Well, if you do 5 plus 14, it's like, oh, well, that's the 19th. So on the 20th, I should be able to expect a response from my tenant. I always advise clients to add a couple of extra days in there. And the reason for that is if you go to the unit, let's say it's August 5th, and the tenant isn't there, so you end up serving the notice by posting a copy on the door for however many tenants there are inside, and mailing the same amount of notices, you have to add a day, or something may happen, and on your way to serve your tenant, maybe you get distracted and you don't get it served for a day or two after. So I usually tell the clients, advise them to maybe put the return date at least 16 days out, even though statutorily you only have to give 14 days. So in this scenario, although it's being served on August 5th, we're saying that the tenant has until August 21st to respond. So it's a little bit more than 14 days. All right, in filling out the notice, you have to let the tenant know how much rent is due and owing and is subject to the repayment offer. So as I stated earlier, repayment offer only involves rent that has accrued up and through April 30th. So this tenant owes rent from March through August. So this notice is only going to cover the rent balance for March and April, only 2 months rent. So we have the total amount of rent due and owing as $1050. And we have to let the client, or I'm sorry, we have to let the tenant know what the total amount due is owing and how we arrive at that figure. We're letting the tenant know that the monthly amount is $513 per month. Well, how do we arrive at that? Well, rent isn't just the base rent, the $450 a month. So if your tenant also has to pay for utilities on top of that, or any other monthly periodic charges, those get added into the total in the definition of rent. So this tenant, their portion of the rent is $450. And again, if we're dealing with a tenant on Section 8 or a tenant that's receiving any type of housing benefit, this notice will only apply toward their portion of the rent. So make sure you're not working off the total rent number, the $900 a month figure. That doesn't apply. You only draft your notices with reference to the tenant portion of the rent. So we have $450 a month. There's 2 months, March and April, of $900. Utilities at $45 a month, 2 months is $90. And then periodic charges, here I put an $18 charge. Monthly periodic charges are those items that are in your lease that get billed to the tenant monthly that are not the base rent or utilities. A good example of that would be is if there's this like a storage fee, if you have a storage unit that you're charging the tenant for, if there's parking, anything that accrues on a monthly basis, that would be a monthly periodic charge, and you can add that. Monthly periodic charges are not late fees. So you absolutely cannot have late fees on this notice or any other charges that accrue on a one-time basis. So if there's some type of single charge, like an NSF charge because a tenant gave you a bad check 1 month, that does not apply because that's not a monthly periodic charge that the tenant gets charged every month. Okay, so if we add the 2 months worth of rent, utilities, and periodic charges, we arrive at this $1,050 total. So that's how much is subject to this offer repayment plan. We scroll down and the tenant gets at least 30 days from the service of the notice to make that first payment. This is critical. So if you serve this notice on August 5th, right, the 30th day would be September 4th. Again, that's cutting it pretty tight. I typically encourage clients to add a day or 2 extra in there just in case, because if you cut it short and you end up only giving them 29 days notice because you got distracted and you served a day late, this notice is not going to be valid. All right, so make sure that they're instructed that they have at least 30 days from the date of service of the notice, indicate that date, and so they know when this first payment of $171 has to be made. We arrive at the $171 monthly payment amount as 1/3 of this monthly rental amount. So their monthly rent, we calculated, right, $450 for base rent, $45 for utilities, $18 for monthly periodic charges. That totals $513 a month. We divide that by 3, and that's what their monthly payment is going to be, this $171 here. So starting on September 4th, at least 30 days from the date they're served, they're going to have to start paying $171 on the arrearage of this $1,050, the 2 months rent that's due and owing. And they'll continue making that payment on a monthly basis until the balance is paid in full. All right. And the notice will typically have reminders, and this is more to remind the landlord that none of the amounts that are subject to this payment plan are late fees or attorney fees or any other charges or fees, unless they're monthly periodic charges, as we described earlier. So again, you were going to send this notice out to your tenant if they have rent that's owed from April 30th, 2023 or before. If they don't, you're going to ignore this step. You don't need to issue this notice. You're going to issue the notice out, and then you're going to wait your 14 days. All right, so we had said we're giving the tenant till August 21st to accept that offer repayment. So let's say August 21st comes around and the tenant has not accepted and you haven't heard anything back from them regarding the offer repayment. If that's the case, then you're going to go ahead and issue your pay, rent, or vacate notice, and it's going to have all the rent, right? This particular tenant owed from March through August, you're going to put all of that rent on your pay or vacate notice. If they did go ahead and accept the offer, then you're going to issue your pay or vacate notice with only reference to May, June, July, and August, because the March and April arrearage, which was contained on the offer of repayment, has been dealt with by the tenant signing off on an offer to repay that on a time payment plan. They don't get that option for any rent that accrues from May 1st, 2023 or after. Okay, any rent from May 1, 2023 or after, you can go straight to a non-payment notice. So that brings us to the next step as far as what type of non-payment notice do you use. And so under state law, a 14-day notice to pay rent or vacate is required. However, during COVID, the Trump administration put into effect the Federal CARES Act. That was extended by the Biden administration. And the portions of the CARES Act that apply to evictions has not been repealed. And so those are still in place. So in order to determine whether or not your property falls under the CARES Act, I'm going to put up a list. Bear with me for 1 second here.